my rule here, and I'm going to add an option onto the notify actions. And then I'm going to hit save. So I've added with stick equals true. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to publish this. And when it's done publishing, I'm going to go back to XKCD and I'll refresh the page so that the rule can run again. So you'll notice that all I had to do was refresh the page, and this time the window is not going to disappear. There's caching within the Kynetx system of your rule, but we flush the cache when you deploy through App Builder. So when you hit publish, it cleans everything out of the way and makes it ready for your code to run again. So that when I went back to the browser, hit refresh, that's all that I needed to do to deploy a change to my application. This is kind of an important point. If you have an application that's running and you want to make a change to it because something new happened, or you want to respond, or you're just adding features as fast as you can, deployment is that fast. You make the change, you hit publish, and it's available to everyone using your application, including all the people that already have cards or browser extensions that they've already installed on the machines. They'll instantly receive those updates. There's no update process that they have to be involved in. So now I have this Hello World window that's sticking up here. And it shows on every page on XKCD, right? So if I hit random, I'll get a random comic within XKCD. This is actually slightly dangerous, right? But this happened on every single page. And I don't necessarily want to have it happen on every single page. I just want to have it happen on one of my favorite comics. And so I'm going to switch back to App Builder. I'm going to change my message here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this select using string right here is actually a regular expression. Now, it turns out you can generally drop a URL in there because the dots in a URL match any single character, including a dot. So you can generally drop a URL in there, but you can write any complicated regular expression that you want there. And this is especially useful if you have one rule that you want to fire on multiple sites, because you can have more than one site in the dispatch block. And so you can actually have one rule that fires many places by constructing a regular expression which does this. And for the curious, this uses Perl regular expressions. So if you're looking for something complicated, you can find out what's going on there. Now, because XKCD uses comic numbers, I can actually make this really easy. And I'm going to match anything that has 645 in the URL. And that way, this is only going to happen on pages where 645 exists in the URL. So I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to publish this. I'm going to go back to XKCD, and I'm going to refresh on this comic here. And nothing happens because I've instructed my Kynetx application to only run when 645 is in the URL. Well, in the archives here happens to be one of my favorite comics. And so I'm going to load this comic, and here we have the message that I'm displaying only on this page within XKCD. Now you can imagine that I can use an OR expression, for example, to match multiple comics, or maybe if, some more advanced behavior. So this is kind of cool because now I can deploy a specific Kynetx action only on one page within a website. But I want to make this a little more, maybe a little more interactive and respond to what we call ambient context. There's specific context, and that's the context that the user provides you. And ambient context is a context that you can sort of glean from the information that's going on. For example, knowing which browser they're using is an example of ambient context. So I'm going to use instead of browser here, I've decided that it's important for me to know what the current conditions for the weather of the user are in the use of my application. And so I'm going to add a pre-block here, which allows me to evaluate variables before my rule actually fires. And I'm going to set a variable. There's many of these ambient intrinsics, we call them, that are available within the system, including stock prices and all sorts of things. Lots of them are location-based, and we're generally doing something like GeoIP in order to look up the location provided by the user. So this one is actually going to look up the current weather conditions. Wherever the user happens to be, that's where all of we are, so that's how it'll come up. And then what I want to do is modify my method here, in case you haven't been out recently, to to let you know what the weather is like outside. So I'm going to go ahead and actually insert this variable inside of my message here, and then I'll hit save. I'm going to publish this. So I'm going to go back to XKCD to my favorite comic and refresh the page. And this time when it comes up, it's going to tell me that today is sunny, because that's the current weather condition that we have, right? It doesn't mention that it's nice and sunny and warm, just that it's sunny. So that's some context about how this happened. If someone were to apply this application in some place where it was snowing or it was overcast or whatever their local conditions would be, they would actually receive a personalized experience. So maybe I don't want to run this rule all the time. I only want this rule to happen sometimes. For example, maybe I only want this rule to happen when it's sunny. Instead of using sunny, I'm actually going to decide that I only want this to run on a weekday. I don't want this application to happen when it's on a weekend. And so I'm going to add a condition here. And I'm going to say if weekday, and then it will only run my action, the notify action, if that condition is true. Now, I've used a simple one here. You can do lots of things. You can combine expressions. You can say if it's a weekday and it's sunny, there's all sorts of advanced things that you can do here. So I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to publish this application. Flip back to XKCD and run this again. And of course, today is in fact a weekday. It'll go ahead and run. If I was to switch that to weekend, then it wouldn't run at all. So that's some quick examples of things you might do. Now, there's some funny things that sometimes happen where rules fire where people don't expect. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the select expression up here at the top. Right now it says selecting using 645, which is a regular expression, and for the regex brewers in the room, that means that any string that has 645 in it will actually run. This gets people into trouble when they say that they want to run something on Google.com. Because while it will run on Google.com, it will also run on any domain or website that is included in the dispatch block and includes Google.com somewhere in the URL. And so if someone has written a blog post about Google.com and in the URL to the blog post is Google.com, then the rule is going to fire there in a way that you may not expect. And so one of the things that really helps people match exact URLs is specifying more of a fully qualified domain name, right? And including the full path of where you're going to. But that still doesn't help you. The surefire way to only fire where you expect to fire is by using the regular expression for start of string and end of string to indicate that this has to be a complete match to what you're doing. So this will indicate in Provo regex language that I'm only going to match URL that exactly matches this URL. So I'm going to deploy this just to make sure I'm not lying. That's a little odd.
No, see, that's what regularly happens.
That's what regularly happens. One of the benefits of being one of the few guys that actually gets up here and shows things working live is that all sorts of things can happen. So that stays interesting.
It's a regular expression.
Yeah.
Proxy is a regular expression.
If you write an incorrect regular expression, the military actually shows up at your door. That's not a feature of Kynetx. I need the network to be nice to me here. I'm not sure what's going on. Well, turns out it's not going to have any effects because I basically asked the same thing to happen again. So this is an example of rules that you might write. Do we have any questions? This is basically the end of my Hello World example, not of what I have to say, but does anyone have any questions about what I've shown you so far? None? I've been perfectly clear in explaining every little detail? I don't believe you.
Are there conditions that allow us to say, I'm looking for a Cox area or whatever you want to call it?
Sam, will you repeat questions after they're, sorry, I'm not going to okay. Will you repeat the questions after they're given so we don't have to run the mic around?
Yes, I will.
So are there conditions that relate to my desire for something right now?
Yes, so the question is are there conditions that express the user's desire for something right now? One of those, you can actually ask for the query terms that were used to arrive at the page that you are. Now, there's a subtle difference here. This is not the query terms for the search page the user is looking at. But let's say on my personal blog, I've decided that when someone has found my blog by searching for green gorillas, I want to message those people specifically. So we have an intrinsic that allows you to match the search term that the user arrived, any search terms that are present in the referring URL. So in that case, on my personal blog, I can write a rule to message specifically people interested in green gorillas for whatever reason. So